Oh, right. You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're talking about Mississippi. So, Lauren?
Yes, Kenzie?
Let's get scary.
And we did get scary right after we finished recording last week at Mackenzie's house. We were still talking about Albert. And we were like, oh, okay, I want to see if he's here. So I looked at Mackenzie and said, I'm so sorry for doing this.
No, you didn't.
But yes, I did. But we're going to try something. So she had a candle behind her. And I was like, okay, if you're here, flicker the candle. And it just did like a little flicker. And I was like, no, like really flicker the candle. And right on command, the candle like flickered. So Mackenzie and I freaked out naturally. And then I had to leave.
She left.
And left her all alone. I assume nothing happened after.
No.
But oh my God, it was such amazing timing.
Yeah. I feel like I have to take the sweater with me.
You have to.
I feel like I've convinced myself in my head that he wants me to take it with me.
That he wants you to take it with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what I said.
I don't know. I'm confusing myself. Oh, and also I apologize if my voice sounds super nasally. It is allergy season.
And you're the one who told me to watch my breathing.
It's not that I'm breathing weird. I don't have to edit out my voice. Thank you.
Because you can't.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yes, it is allergy season, which means that I die. So I have a stuffy nose and congestion, and my eye is now watering.
She's just so touched by my presence that she's overwhelmed with emotion. But she's telling you guys that it's allergies.
But seriously, I was at work and my eyes started watering. My friend looked at me. She goes, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yes, my eyes are just watering."
I've had that when my nose has been like insanely stuffed. I've had that happen before.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not that it's stuffed. It's like, it's all the congestion, which goes up here. Ugh.
Yeah.
Death is upon me. All right.
Well, you got to read these first.
So let's get into Mississippi. So the Wild Isles, Horn and Petite Boys are...
Those are two separate islands, by the way.
And it's probably Petit Bois.
Probably.
Not boys. But they are federally designated wilderness islands, practically untouched by humans. Navigate your own boat or go by private charter, then pitch your tent on their powdery white shores for a true taste of primitive camping.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no. Fish, hike, birdwatch, or swim from your peaceful home base. You can also camp on nearby East Ship Island and on part of Cat Island. Cat Island?
Mm-hmm.
East Ship is just one half of the former Ship Island, which was sawed into two by Hurricane Camille in 1969. West Ship Island is the only island in the Mississippi group that's accessible by ferry. During your day's exploration of West Ship, be sure to check out Fort Massachusetts, a 19th century fortification shaped like the letter D. What? Is there going to be like some really weird word in here?
No, but it's just as I was writing this, and it was like East Ship was just one half of the former ship, and then it got split in half, and now there's West Ship. When I was doing I forget where I was looking, but it was like he would go into East Ship, and then he would set a fire, and then he'd go into West Ship and loot everything, and then he'd go back to like it was just was a lot of ships.
White-tailed deer, nine-banded armadillos, and swamp rabbits are among Mississippi's many mammals. Birds, such as bald eagles, wild turkeys, and red-bellied woodpeckers fly overhead. I read somewhere, this is about a hummingbird, not a woodpecker, but it's a bird. So they have to eat like 3 times their weight every 12 hours or they'll die because of how high their metabolism is.
Yeah, because have you seen how fast those birds go?
Yes, that's so sad.
Why is that sad?
I don't know, because if they can't find enough food, in 12 to 15 hours, they can die.
Well, that's why they live in places with lots of flowers.
I know. Southeastern 5-lined skinks, Gulf crayfish snakes, and Mississippi mud turtles are some of the reptiles living here.
Say the first one 5 times fast.
Do you say crayfish or crawfish?
Crawfish.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's a area thing.
I mean, how it's spelled?
Well, you can also
crayfish.
spell it with a Y. Oh,
right.
Wait. This one's spelled with a W.
I think it is a regional thing because not everywhere spells it with a W.
Yeah.
But I still always say crawfish.
Same.
Yeah.
You might also spot amphibians, such as Mississippi slimy salamanders and cricket frogs in the state. The musical style known as the blues started in Mississippi after the Civil War. It was inspired by songs sung by slaves as they worked in the fields, as well as African spirituals, which are religious songs. 63% of Mississippi's land is covered in forest. That's 19.5 million acres of forest.
I was really hoping that I could find something that would fit into, but I didn't have one.
You know I love my forests. Belzoni, Mississippi is considered the catfish capital of the world. The state of Mississippi contains over 100,000 acres of catfish ponds. 94% of all farm-raised catfish in the United States are raised in Mississippi. Have you heard that some catfish can grow to be like the size of vans? Huge.
I was thinking when I was looking at this, I was like, how big is the catfish industry? Like 94% of all farm-raised catfish. And I'm like, well, yeah, because...
So the biggest catfish is the Wells catfish, and it was 15 feet. The largest catfish ever recorded, was... It was 9 feet long, which doesn't sound wild, but it's 646 pounds.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, thank you.
Big boy.
Big boy. Just like our petite boy.
Yes.
The state fossil, the prehistoric whale, and the state crustacean, the blue crab, highlight Mississippi's geological and ecological diversity. They also have the blue crab?
I guess so.
That's interesting. I thought it was only like a Maryland thing.
No.
The state dance, the square dance, and the state song Go Mississippi celebrate the state's cultural traditions and community spirit.
I thought that was silly.
The Mississippi River was formed around 20 million years ago.
I thought this was cool.
During the Paleogene period, where tectonic activity and erosion caused a low-lying area to form in the central United States. And that's cool. Over time, the area was filled with sediment and water, creating the vast river system today known as the Mississippi River.
I think the Mississippi River was named before the state.
Oh,
Mhm.
why'd they choose Mississippi?
I don't know. I'm sure it means something.
Probably. Mississippi is prone to hurricanes and has experienced several significant storms over the years. According to the National Hurricane Center, there have been 19 hurricanes that have made landfall in Mississippi, and 8 of those were Category 3 through Category 5 storms, which are considered major hurricanes.
I realized recently that, and Virginia is slowly starting to lose this as well, but I feel like where we live is one of the only places in this country that has like not catastrophic weather.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. But like, okay, the West, you got earthquakes, which are terrible because you can't predict them.
Right.
And there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Because it's the ground.
Yes.
Then you move more central and, well, they have tornadoes.
Uh-huh.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
And those are also very scary.
Very scary.
Terrifying. Then you go to the south and it is hot as fucking hell. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Terrible. And then they have those scary ass hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to come up, you can't go up north because it's fucking freezing.
And they have blizzard.
And they have blizzards. It's Virginia. Sometimes we have crazy and we don't know what to do with ourselves for a few days and we're a little distraught,
Mm-hmm.
but then we bounce back.
Like Joe and Richie, they are from Massachusetts. So when it snows up there, you just do life as normal. And I said, down here, they can call for snow and everything goes crazy.
Yeah.
You'll go to the store. There will not be any bread or milk left. Like the world goes, well, the state goes insane.
Correct. Which is frustrating to Northerners, I understand. Like we're like Virginia is like those millennials and Gen Zs that are kind of in the mid-90s, like at the end of millennial and the beginning of Gen Z.
Yeah.
That's what Virginia is. We're too high to really be the South, but we're not far enough to be the North either.
Right.
So
Right. We're just like right in that little mini
exactly
middle zone.
Like people don't, well, I guess people from here, because if you're from the other part of Virginia, I think they would consider it the South.
Northern Virginia.
Northern.
We're that weird little area. Everything else it's the South.
Yeah. You're in a bubble.
Yeah. In Jackson County, you can find the Mississippi sandhill crane, the rarest crane in North America. It's about 44 inches tall and has a wingspan of 8 feet.
Damn.
Wow. Each year, Mississippi is hit by an average of 27 tornadoes. So they also get tornadoes.
Yeah, it's the northern part.
But still,
Yeah.
tornado.
Because if you, like, we don't have a map, but when you think about, like, the tippy tops of those, like, southern states, like
Oh, yeah.
Texas, Mississippi, Oklahoma and Texas are
Yeah, they're right in
buddies.
that
Yeah.
area.
So,
It's also worth noting that the state has seen 2 of the 5 deadliest tornadoes in the U.S. history.
there's a lot more sad facts about Mississippi.
I
but
bet there
I
were.
didn't include them. It's Statistically, it's a sad place to live. So you can't come at me because there are actual facts of like the not so great things about Mississippi.
So don't get mad at us when we talk about states.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but there's going to be a couple states that I'm always going to shit on, and Mississippi is one of them.
Yeah. The white-tailed deer population in the state, which is believed to be over 1.75 million, is higher than any other state in terms of deer per unit area, which is density.
And we thought we had a deer problem.
I know. Have you ever hit a deer, like when you've been driving? You have? Oh, that's so terrifying. Did I know about that? I probably did. Were you okay?
God, when was it? I think it was senior year.
Oh, high school?
And yeah, and it was, I don't know what night it was. I was driving, and you know, like when you came out of my neighborhood, if you went straight to take you towards the Harris Teeter.
Yeah.
So as I'm going down that road, I'm ranting about something.
Naturally.
Yeah. And the person in the car with me starts saying my name, and there's a deer bounding across
Oh,
the lanes, and I'm going this way, and it just bam right into the side.
jeez.
So called all the people. They came because of the deer's condition.
Oh,
And I said, I need to leave if you're going to do that.
yeah.
So did all the things that I needed to do, and I was on my merry way.
Mom once hit a deer. We were on a really dark back road, and she is turning her head to talk to me as a deer is coming out of the woods so she doesn't see it. And it was a slow motion thing where everything stopped, and all I thought was, protect your head. So I like curled into a little ball. And then we hit it. So she's freaking out. I'm telling her, Mom, like it was just a slow motion, like the weirdest thing. I told her what it was. She freaks out. Then she's like, we have to go back to save it. I said, no. And I said, it probably just got a little nick on the hip and it's fine in the woods.
Yeah, no, mine was not it was a bad one.
I saw a deer on the side of the road. Well, it was in the middle of the road on my way to work the other day. And like there were cops all around it. And I saw its little head up and I was like, oh, I need to not know what's going to happen next.
It's so funny, the difference between you and I.
Why?
Because you're like, oh, its little head. And I would have been like, ew, they were holding its head.
What? The cops weren't holding the head.
Oh, then why the head was just up?
It was laying down and its head was up, meaning that it was still alive, but it was laying, so it couldn't get up, but it was still alive. Oh my God, Mackenzie.
I'm just like, that's gross.
No, if I saw that, I would have screamed.
I was walking around my neighborhood the other day, and you know, you're in your zone. You're
Right.
just vibing.
Just vibing.
There's a fucking dead squirrel on the sidewalk.
Ugh.
And it's like one of those, it scares the shit out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Not that anything jumps out, but it scares the fucking shit out of you. Scared the shit out of me. And I was like, oh, no. And I like walk into the street and way around. And my heart was beating for so much, so long. And no, I
think I've told the story on the podcast before, but it's too funny to not tell. So there was a dead squirrel in the middle of the road at my parents' house, and we went to move it out of the road. So Jared goes to pick it up by the tail and throw it into the woods. Well, the body goes off of the tail. So he goes to fling it, and the body goes one way, and he's still holding the tail.
That's what he gets for picking up a dead squirrel.
Oh my God, it was so funny. Oh.
No.
Oh.
Oh my God. So yeah, I've hit a deer before.
Yeah, okay, back to the point. Oh, very scary. Mackenzie, what tale do you have for us in Mississippi?
So it's August of 1999 in Columbus, Mississippi, and Fran Murphy is still afraid to take out her garbage. Murphy, 66, will only step outside her home in the daylight because she fears a murderer may still be on the loose in her neighborhood.
I mean, valid.
Right. Same. But, all the time. She told reporters, quote, "There is fear at my house. It's been 10 months since the brutal deaths of 5 elderly people, including a woman killed shortly after taking out her trash, and no arrests have been made. Police insisted they are still on the case and deny any suspicions the murders were the work of a serial killer." So, the first 2 victims didn't really have a lot of information about them, aside from when and how they died.
Mm-hmm. And what year are we in again?
90s, late
Okay.
90s. And so because what I think happened is this is one of those situations where these first two happened, no one really thought a thing of it, especially because it was about a year apart.
Right.
And then the last three happened, and
I'm sorry. I'm trying so hard to focus. And my nose is like getting all tickly and my eyes are watering.
I tried to ignore it. I really
I know
did.
you did. I tried to be so subtle and I couldn't do it. God, okay.
Okay.
Just don't look at me.
Okay.
Well, you can, but just be aware that it might start just watering.
Okay.
And if a tear falls down my cheek, I'm okay.
All right. So what I think happened is the last three happened and everyone started to get into a tizzy. That's when it started to get a lot of attention.
Well, because at that point it's 5.
Right. So, but because the last three, they happened very close together comparatively to the first two, I think the investigation into the last three led them to, oh, hey, here are these other ones.
Right.
So I couldn't really find much background on these two specific people. And it didn't really help that in 1997, there was a movie called Ghosts of Mississippi
Oh.
about a different murder case from the 1960s. And
Oh.
so the website that I found that said that this was one of the great unsolved, they said that the media dubbed it the Ghosts of Mississippi,
Interesting.
which I don't think they did.
Oh.
I think he was getting it confused with this other one that became a movie.
Ah.
And so I had to be very specific
Right.
when looking. And some of the victims, when I looked up their name, newspaper, Google, whatever, they had stuff come up. But then some of them,
Right.
only so much. So you'll have to work with me here. Mac Fowler was a 78-year-old retired farmer and was found on July 8th, 1996 in his home. He had been stabbed and strangled, but nothing appeared to be missing.
What the heck?
70-year-old George Wilbanks was a well-known interior decorator, which I thought was strange since I really could not find anything on him.
Yeah, especially if he's like well known too.
Yeah. And the couple ones that I did, you had to pay for. So.
Yep.
He was also found stabbed and strangled in his upscale North Columbus home. Nothing appeared to be missing. So he was found November 2nd, 1997.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we have a little bit more meat. Robert Hanna was 61 years old and a bit of a loner. He was a retired hospital cafeteria employee who enjoyed picking up aluminum cans along city streets.
He was able to retire at 61.
Yep.
Wow.
It's Mississippi in the 90s.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're going to be working till we're 91.
Correct. So, although he wasn't known by many, the few who did interact with him said he was always kind and never bothered anyone. On October 13th, 1998, firefighters responded to a fire at about 10:30 p.m. at Robert's house. When the fire was put out, the body of Robert Hanna was found among the remains of the house. Later, it was determined that Robert was beaten and strangled prior to his home being set on fire.
Oh.
They believed that he had been dead for about 3 days prior to the fire.
Oh.
Police believed that the fire was set to destroy evidence.
Right.
Obvi.
But 3 days later?
Mm-hmm. So, side note. One article from October of 1998 said that Robert's daughter was at the scene and had told police that her father was inside. However, an article from November of the same year, it's reported that neighbors and police did not know his family or friends, and efforts to reach Robert's family through the funeral home handled his arrangements were unsuccessful.
Why is it so different?
I don't know. I have a theory about it.
Okay.
We'll get to that later. So Louise Randall was 80 years old and was a retired waitress and grocery store owner. She had used a walker since her hip replacement 3 years ago and was famed by her family for her divine chocolate pies.
No.
Since her hip replacement, Louise didn't get out much and spent most of her time inside, where she read big print novels and always kept a big print Bible at her side.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mom has her phone set on big print, and so
So does
whenever
my
she looks
mom.
at mine, she's like, how in the world can you see this?
So did my mom.
Because hers will, like, a sentence will take up, like, 4 lines.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Mhm.
Rana.
Hey. On October 20th, 1998, a friend came by to pick up Louise to take her to a doctor's appointment. The friend found Louise half-dressed, getting ready for the doctor's appointment. Nothing.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. Hands bound behind her back with a cord, strangled and gagged with a white sock.
Oh my gosh.
Louise Randall's son, Grady Randall, noticed his mother's home had been ransacked, but nothing seemed to be taken.
That's so weird.
Mm-hmm. A container full of pennies was open and strewn all over Louise's bed. Hunting equipment was found scattered on Grady's bed in his mother's house, and he told reporters, quote, "There were things strewn all over the place, but nothing was taken," which is weird.
Yeah.
Betty Everett was a 67-year-old beautician for the Trinity Retirement Center for 6 years with about 35 customers a week, and occasionally she would work at her daughter's monogram store. She was a kind and talented hairdresser who was beloved by all her patrons. On November 18th, 1998, Betty was scheduled to start work at 8 a.m., and she would typically get there early to drink coffee and visit with many residents. Residents became concerned when Betty still hadn't shown up for work, so the administrative assistant, Nell Luke, called Betty's brother-in-law to check to see if she was okay. Betty's daughter and her husband called back 15 minutes later to say that Betty's house had been broken into and she had been murdered.
Oh my gosh.
She had been strangled and nothing appeared to be missing. Some of the articles I read said that she was found in a similar manner to Louise, bound, gagged.
Right.
So what we know about all the cases, they weren't a part of the same church. They weren't part of any of the same organizations. They didn't have the same friends.
So they're just like completely random.
They were all senior citizens. They all died in a similar fashion. They all lived in North Columbus within a 3-mile radius of one another. And the map that is included in one of the newspaper articles, I mean, they live really close to each other. It's surprising that they didn't know each other because of how close they lived together.
Interesting.
And how small the town is.
Okay.
There were no signs of forced entry and no apparent motive. And police go back and forth about whether they think it's one or multiple assailants. So, all right. So first we'll kind of get into the investigation then.
Okay.
Theories, current information, new theories.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So shortly after Beverly Everett, not Beverly, that is not her name, it is Betty. Shortly after Betty Everett was killed, the media was reporting that authorities had several suspects and that one of the suspects matched a police composite of a man seen shortly after Betty was killed. Supposedly, the police had questioned 15 suspects and considered 3 of them as strong suspects. Because all had been strangled and nothing missing from their home, that led some to speculate that the killer may be the same person.
Yeah.
By the end of November of 1998, Columbus Police Chief Donald Freshour called in criminal investigators from surrounding counties and the FBI to get a fresh pair of eyes on the case. He told reporters, quote, "Sometimes you get so close to something it's hard to see. We're going to get an outside task force together to talk about the murders to see what can be done." Yes, sorry. I started overthinking again. I mess up once. This is why I can't perform.
Of course, yeah. That's fine. You'd be like, wait, can we restart this scene, please?
Oh my God. I would be, because I nervous laugh.
I know you do. I can
badly.
hear with a lot of our episodes, you'll be saying something like really dark, but you're like, you have this chuckle in your voice. And I'm like, I really hope people understand like what this chuckle is. Like, we're not laughing because something's funny. We're laughing because it's like, it's such an uncomfortable, like nervous laugh.
Yes.
Because sometimes what you're talking about is so freaking dark and you're like, whew, just gotta get through this.
Yes. So
even though we choose the cases ourselves.
We don't need to talk about that.
Okay.
Freshour said criminal investigation specialists from Starkville, West Point, and Loudons County.
Loudons County?
It's yes, but not how we spell it.
Oh, because I was like, well, that's kind of cool.
It's Lown, like Lowndes. So I assumed Loudus.
Oh, okay.
Lowndes County. The FBI will review all of the evidence and possible suspects at a closed-door roundtable discussion. He also told reporters that they had suspects in the murder investigation, but there are still some, quote, missing elements before an arrest can be made. After hearing of the murder, some residents began trying to protect themselves. An elderly woman, Ellen Smith, who lived near 2 of the victims, recently learned to shoot. She has been practicing at a shooting range. Many people think that someone from the town is the culprit. Trish Shepard, who owns a beauty salon in Columbus, said, quote, "I think it's a person who was raised here, that goes to church here. He does all the right things with the right people." Columbus police tracked down hundreds of leads. They also hired 2 out-of-town serial killer experts. City prosecutors Dennis Harmon said Columbus has a long history of mysterious deaths. There are a lot of very interesting suicides in this town. There was one young man. There was a hole in the back of his head when they found him in the water. The hole was ruled a crawfish hole. Oh, look, crawfish again.
Yeah. Ew.
And that it somehow was suicide in the water, which I saw this case as I was researching.
Yeah.
And it's very strange because it seems like it'd be a hunting accident, but he's by himself.
Ew.
And so they tried to say suicide, but he has a hole in the back of his head. They couldn't find the bullet. Parents went back, found the bullet, didn't match his gun.
Oh.
So, not suicide. And it had mentioned that there had been maybe other people.
Interesting.
Yeah. Harmon wonders if some of the bodies turning under odd circumstances might in fact be victims of foul play. During this time, the town had a violent streak. There are twice as many murders per capita in Columbus, Mississippi than there were in New York City at the time.
Oh my gosh.
In August of 1999, there were flyers offering $25,000 reward. Some I saw say 22, so
Some high number.
some high number, for information in the cases posted in the windows of police stations. A task force had been created of 7 detectives to work the murders. Columbus had a new police chief, Billy Pickens, and he told the press that investigators believed the 5 slayings were not the work of a serial killer.
Okay.
He said detectives now believe 3 of the deaths were not even connected. He told a reporter that only, quote, the last 2 women killed had similarities. He also told the media that the task force has, quote, developed new leads and discovered new evidence. At this point, I am satisfied with the progress made. An arrest could come today, tomorrow, or down the road somewhere. No one can actually predict that. Stupid thing to say.
Yeah.
At this point, investigators aren't receiving as many phone calls and tips like they had at the beginning of the investigation. Then the police chief is quoted saying what I believe to be the dumbest fucking quote from a law enforcement officer.
Okay.
He says, quote, not every case is solvable. I think most of these cases are.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
That was actually, yeah, very stupid.
Such a fucking stupid thing to say. The expert profilers the department had brought in earlier that year said the suspect could possibly be a woman, likely from a broken home, and could have had a domineering mother.
Interesting.
Mhm.
See, that's just so cool.
Yeah.
Like how they can look at like a crime scene and be like, this is probably who did it.
Yeah. Well.
This could be potentially who did it.
Yes. But keep a pin in that. 'Cause
Okay.
we're going to come back to it. The homicides received national attention, drawing a film crew from CBS News 48 Hours to Columbus to spotlight the cases, but many residents said that they spent more time comparing the city to the Andy Griffith Show, fictional Mayberry, rife with corn-prone locals. Many local residents in Columbus felt the show cast the town in a negative light. Former Mayor Jeffrey Rupp said the unsolved murders in the 48 Hours special left a shadow over Columbus. Rupp served as a mayor from 2000 to 2006, so there's overlap with these investigations.
Okay.
Rupp said, quote, obviously the fact that they were unsolved caused a lot of anxiousness around town, less than pleasant discussions about the general confidence in the police department, and feeling of unease and concern about public safety. You had senior citizens packing. Back then, that was not a very comforting thought because it was certainly not the norm. And I said, not the norm in small town Mississippi? Question mark, question mark? What? I don't think so. As a mayor, it hurts on some level to think that that's what your citizens feel they need to do. Which, yes.
Yeah.
But I thought they already did that. So, anyway, in February of 2001, police reported that they had new leads in the case. Police Chief Billy Pickens received a tip that, quote, reactivated a special task force assigned to investigate the murders. This is only like 3-4 years later.
Yeah.
It's not like an insane amount of time.
Yeah.
The chief would not elaborate or give details about which case was affected. The previous April, police had said that they might be close to solving at least 2 of the unsolved slayings. At the time, Pickens said investigators were awaiting evidence to be returned from the state crime lab involving the deaths of Betty Everett and Louise Randall. The chief said that they were hunting similarities between the slayings but would not elaborate. Side note, the original police chief was possibly convicted with embezzling or something
Small town
scandalous.
things.
Yeah, something scandalous. So this new guy took over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not good.
No. On websleuths.com, a post was created about this case in 2009. These were some of the comments left on the post that had a theory or additional information about the case.
Ooh, okay.
They're actually pretty good.
Okay. That's rare.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding. Web sleuths can be good, but sometimes they're just stupid.
Yes. These, I liked these because, one, I felt like people didn't repeat themselves, which is fucking annoying.
Right.
You could just like it and say, yep, agree with you.
Yeah, instead of rewording exactly what you said.
They like built off of what someone else said, like responding to it.
Wow.
Or they shared new information because supposedly they were from the town.
Yeah.
So
sometimes you do find new information in some of these random things and you're like,
yeah.
Do I believe you? Do I not?
Well, we included them because it makes it interesting.
Right.
So
of course.
Hope to Help created a post in October of 2009, just giving all the details of the case, links, whatnot. And so kind of at the end of it, he, she, they, whoever gave their kind of take on everything after it was explained.
Yeah.
So they said, some things I've wondered about. Are there any medical ties between these folks? One of them had worked at a hospital cafeteria. One was still working at a nursing home, and one was mobility impaired.
Okay.
Maybe these folks saw the same people in the health industry there, or maybe the killer is somehow involved in healthcare. Secondly, in what types of industries do people learn/use a hog tie? That might be something to look at because of how they were bound. Third, I believe there is a military base nearby. It strikes me that all of the murders happened within a limited amount of time and then stopped. I wonder if anyone with problems transferred onto the base and then left after the killings, transferring somewhere else. I think that's about it in terms of my thoughts so far on the case. It just really makes me sad and angry that these folks have had no justice and that the elderly people in this town are probably still in fear. Which I thought, all good ideas.
Yeah, all very valid.
Yeah.
I wonder though, so what was the time frame between all the murders? Like how long
So the
from
first
the first to
one-
the last?
So the first one was in 1996.
Okay.
Then a year later, 1997.
Mm-hmm.
Then the last three were literally in the span of a month, like October 13th,
In 97.
98.
See, okay, so with the military theory,
Mhm.
you're usually stationed somewhere for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
If he knew he was about to leave.
Right. And so I'm wondering if, so you have your 3 years.
Yeah.
Because nothing else happened
Mhm.
outside or before that. And then I wonder too, I don't know how they could do this, but if they could look at other places where military bases are and maybe like, whatever branch she's in, each branch can only go to a certain number of bases.
Sure.
Look at those bases and see if there's any murders
Oh,
that
yeah.
happen in those areas as well.
That'd be good.
And then kind of start tracking who was here at this time,
Mhm.
who from that place went to this one. Like, I don't know if that's possible, but it's an interesting military theory.
Oh, it's possible, but that means that someone
Work
would have
to
to
be
come
done.
onto this website and see all these great ideas.
Or listen to our podcast.
That too. No, but I thought she had some really good points. Like I didn't put together the whole healthcare thing.
Yeah, that's a really good one too.
So I was like, ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
So,
trying to find some links between them.
mhm. And that's why I liked these comments because I felt like they had good ideas that we're still able to link them.
Yeah,
There's still the other two that don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway. Okay.
So the ones that had the health stuff, like the one,
The last three.
oh,
Yeah.
well, you knew exactly what I was going to ask.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it could be the first two are just kind of two.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last three, there ended up being that connection.
Mm-hmm. That's
Hmm.
yeah. So Gia777 commented in November of 2009 saying, saw the show 48 hours on this too and had considered putting up a thread but never got around to it. So for 5 unsolved murders in one small town, it certainly did not get the attention I would have expected. I tend to think that they are all related. As I recall, the son of one of the women killed was a suspect for a while. I don't know if he still is or not. I never saw that, so I don't know.
Huh.
I think you make some interesting observations talking to the...
Original poster.
Yeah.
The OP, if you will.
Oh, I see that. I was like, I know there's a thing. I put OG. I couldn't remember what it was.
The OG.
I'm like, I know it's something, but I don't
You were close. One letter off.
OG post. I was so close. It is rare for a serial killer. I don't know. It's a new one I can't say. It's rare for a serial killer to just suddenly stop, although it does happen, which makes it seem very plausible the killer could have been part of the military and was stationed nearby until he was transferred. It would be interesting to find out if they were all connected somehow to the same person. Did any of them have any nurses coming to their house? They were all old.
Mm-hmm.
Could that same person be affiliated with a nursing home where one of the victims still worked? The fact that there was no forced entry seems to indicate that they knew or trusted their killer
Right.
enough to let them inside. However, being in a small town, I wonder how many of them left
Locked
their
their
doors.
doors. Yeah.
So J little RN, don't know if that's how you do it, but that's what we're going to go with, commented in December of 2013. I know this is a very old thread. It was only like 4 years. It is now.
Right, right.
I know this is a very old thread, but just thought I would throw this out there. I worked in Columbus for several years as a nurse and took care of an elderly... It is RN because nurse. Huh.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought.
I just didn't know how to say it.
Oh.
I wanted to say J. Littlelyn.
J little R-N.
When I was rereading it, I was like, you should just say J little RN.
Yeah.
And
Registered nurse. That's, yeah.
And here I was thinking in my head, oh my God, what if J little RN hears this and it's like, that's not how you do it. And it is.
Unless we're completely off and it's just a weird coincidence.
Yeah. I worked in Columbus for several years as a nurse and took care of an elderly gentleman whose son worked under the police chief when the murders started. I was at home one Saturday and saw the rerun on TV and made a note to talk to him about it when I saw him next. He told me that they were almost 100% positive that it was a drifter, but they never had any evidence to put any of the murders on him. Also, apparently, when the drifter left, the murders stopped. The police had been putting a significant amount of pressure on him, and soon after, he either left or died.
And they believe it, like they have the drifter in mind, right?
It sounds like it.
Yeah, that's what it was sounding like.
Yeah. Now, with that being said, I still don't understand the lack of forced entry. Being from the area, I suppose it is possible that they left their doors unlocked, but it would be more plausible that people around there are so friendly and would have just opened the door regardless of whether they knew the person or not, which is more believable.
Both are plausible, but I mean, because like if it is a small town, the door unlocked thing is a very common characteristic.
Well, and it was funny because originally when this was written, he said, or they said, or whatever, whether they knew the killer or not. And I was like, I think if they knew it was a killer, they wouldn't open the fucking door. So I changed it to person.
Oh my gosh. Well, they obviously didn't know it's the killer, but we now do.
I knew what they meant, but I said, no, that doesn't make sense. It's a person because who the fuck would open the door to a killer?
Oh my God.
So I changed it. I lived in the nearby town of Starkville, Mississippi for 7 years, and while there, I inquired about a house that was perpetually for sale. I mentioned it to a coworker that the house just rolled from owner to owner. She, being a lifelong native, informed me that there had been a double murder in the home, and reportedly the house was haunted. I said, tell me more.
Right? What else you got?
Say more. She went on to tell me an elderly woman and her daughter had been murdered there. Apparently it was quite, in all caps, the horrific scene. Both had been sexually assaulted, and according to the people called to the scene, there was blood everywhere. Now, the rumor that there's a professor at Mississippi State, which is the college in Starkville, that's the other thing. It's also a college town.
Oh.
Or it's near a college.
Okay.
Had adopted a son who was known to be a weirdo who had some mental issues, and he quickly became a person of interest as he had a social link to the mother, which just because you might be a bit odd does not mean you're a killer.
Right.
Which is stupid.
And so is this a different older person who's not included in the 5 that you originally talked about? Oh,
but
wow.
We come back to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Apparently, to save face, the professor had his son sent overseas, I believe I was told Ireland, to avoid prosecution/embarrassment. People in Starkville claimed that there could be a connection between this adopted young man and the Columbus murder that had not been thought of before the murder in Starkville happened. Also still unsolved to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So on a separate blog that users write about cold cases, Gwen Johnson posted a blog about the murders in 2013. And in it, she says, there are a lot of talk around town about possible suspects. One of the townspeople suggested that maybe it may be a person who lived in the town for all of his life and is a person who is visible to many because he does all the right things. He probably holds a good job. He probably goes to church and has been an active member of the community. The thoughts have crossed my mind are about the knots that were tied, how clean the scenes were. The references to hunting could be really important clues. What if the person is signifying a couple of things? 1, he is a hunter. 2, he may be a big game hunter as he ties up his victims, much like that of a hunter bagging big game.
Right.
Examination of the knots could be key to the investigation. What type of person would know the type of knots that the police found at the crime scenes? Unfortunately, the crime scenes were mishandled. This is the only place I saw this.
As they always are. Oh, okay.
So I don't know.
If it's the only place, hopefully it wasn't mishandled.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They really didn't talk about the specific evidence that they found.
Oh.
So it's hard to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. But they say that they were mishandled and things were contaminated. But I'm not so sure. And you'll see why in a second. I guess one would have to ask themselves the question of whether or not it was a botched investigation, knowing that maybe, like the townspeople said, it could be someone who has lived in the area all their lives and has a good job. There's a lot going on in the town, and maybe they will get answers they are seeking if they are willing to let someone out of the area come in and do some investigating, which they technically did. Maybe the FBI should come in, which they technically did, and take a look at these cases because something is happening in Columbus, Mississippi, and it isn't as simple as it may look to the general public. Usually the townspeople know more than they are willing to share or give up. That's just the way it is when everyone knows everyone. Life depends on how quiet you can be.
Ooh.
So, in 2014, the Commercial Dispatch reported Columbus Police Chief Sylvian McQueen had formally arrested Ernest Terrell Talley, 44, of Remunda Drive in Columbus, and charged him with Will Banks's murder in front of a gaggle of local media gathered in the courtroom at the Columbus Municipal.
Municipal.
Thank you. Complex.
Municipal.
I was doing so well. I was like, I can't even say that word. His preliminary hearing is May 17th.
Municipal.
Mm-hmm. Judge Mark.
Arc with the M.
Exactly. Judge Mark Amos set bond at $2 million.
Whoa.
Talley was already in the Lowndes County Adult Detention Center on a burglary charge from January 14th. Some people speculated that a serial killer was on the loose, but McQueen never believed that. Or at least that Will Banks's murder was the work of the serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
He said, quote, "I never thought this was a serial murder. We are going to eat this elephant one bite at a time."
Interesting little
They need to get like a PR.
terminology. Yeah.
Like they really,
Some cases are unsolved, but not this one.
some cases are solved.
Right. Like whatever the weird thing he said was.
He added that he fully expects, without a shadow of a doubt, that there will be additional arrests in connection with other cases. Will Banks lived on 2nd Avenue at the time, and he and Talley had been mutual friends. So this is the second person,
Okay.
the one who was the interior decorator.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Authorities said they know the motive, but declined to release the details. But then, it has to do with money. But as far as details, we'd rather not say anything.
Naturally.
Even though he just fucking did.
Right. Right.
Retired Columbus Police Chief Pete Bowen told the press. They've had a lot of fucking police chiefs. I've read like 5 different names in this entire case. The CPD presented cases against Ernest Talley and Curtis Hinton. I only saw his name in one place.
Mm-hmm.
Men accused of the 1997 murder of George Will Banks. Also, in a couple of the documents, George's name was wrong.
Like a different person altogether?
It had Will Banks, but his first name was like,
Oh.
I don't know. I can't look like a weird version of Lauren with a W.
Lawrence?
No, I know Lawrence. And so the grand jury no-billed both cases. And from the law offices of Jonathan F. Marshall, if a grand jury has returned a no-bill decision, it means that they have concluded that there is not enough evidence of guilt to support a criminal charge against the accused.
I was just going to ask you what that meant.
No. Talley remains in the custody of the Mississippi Department of Corrections on unrelated charges, and Hinton is living as a free man out of state. So they arrested somebody,
Yeah.
but
Our light flickers and it just went out and it's like dim, but the change in light like got me looking. Sorry.
come look at.
I mean, you can hear how drastic it was just. But yeah, so they got some guy, but not,
They didn't have enough evidence.
and also not for even like the charge that we want him to be in for.
Yeah, well, because they didn't have enough evidence for that one.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in May of 2017, the Clarion Ledger reported that David Murray, 52, of Jackson, is accused of killing Mac Fowler, 72, in July of 1996. So the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Officials said a DNA sample linked Murray to Fowler's homicide. Columbus Police Department investigator Brent Swan said Murray was arrested by U.S. Marshals in Jackson. The DNA sample that connected Murray to Fowler was collected in Jackson in October of 2016 when he was arrested by Jackson Police Department on a charge of aggravated assault. The DNA sample matched the samples from the 1996 Fowler case.
Oh.
Murray was a guest in Fowler's home the night of his death. The two apparently engaged in a physical altercation in the front of the home, and it carried on through the back of the home where Fowler was killed.
So how is this not the person?
It is.
Oh, it is. Okay.
This is different.
Oh, okay.
This is the first guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
The last one was the second guy.
Right. Okay. Just making sure yeah.
Yeah. And they, did I say that they knew each other?
Well, they were hanging out.
They had mutual friends.
Who?
The Will Banks guy and this Talley guy.
Oh.
They had mutual friends.
Okay.
I think, did I say that?
I don't think so.
Okay. So, yeah, because part of the motive. So they had mutual friends and the motive was money.
Okay.
So the capital murder charge comes from an underlying burglary charge as things were taken from the scene, which is now different because before
There wasn't anything taken.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Murray, who is originally from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and went to college in Texas, lived in Columbus between 1986 and 2005. Public records show that between November 1993 and September of 1995, he was in prison for a conviction in Lowndes County, but the nature of the crime is unclear as the database shows compounding crime.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
No, I don't either.
But he was out of jail when the murder started, so he could do all of them.
Right.
When asked if Murray could be responsible for the other deaths, Swan said, quote, "We're just taking each case and processing and evaluating them individually." Swan would not confirm or deny that Murray confessed, but authorities said in a press conference that he had been cooperative. District Attorney Scott Colum said the case will go to the next possible grand jury. Through the years, there have been questions about the possibility of the homicides being linked. Police noted at the time of the deaths that the victims lived within a 3-mile radius.
That's so close.
It is so close. 2 Columbus addresses listed for Murray in 1995 and 1996 are within the same 3 miles. However, Mayor Robert Smith said police told him Murray is not likely linked to the other victims. And then in August of 2017, a grand jury indicted David Murray, 52, of Jackson on 1 count of capital murder. And then I don't know what happened after that.
Jeez.
Because there was nothing else.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming he got convicted.
Yeah. I would assume.
Yeah. So
that's how it makes it sound. you know?
So we have some more theories. And after this information came to light, these are also comments left from the same post.
Okay. And so we have how many victims who we are still trying to figure out the killers for?
3, but technically 4 because the guy never got convicted.
Right.
So you can consider that solved if you really think he's the one that did it and got away with it.
But we have 1 confirmed.
Yes.
1, and then 3 we're still trying to figure out.
Correct.
Okay. Just so everyone's on the same page.
Yes. So, Big Butch.
Oh, God.
Commented in February of 2020. Grew up in Columbus, lived there from 1964 to 1997. I had just moved away when all this happened. Back in 2005, having just moved to Georgia, I did search on what had been happening in my hometown regarding these murders. I was going through links on a simple search and came across a link that I thought was strange. It was posted by a serial killer in prison in Oregon called the Smiley Face Killer. Real name, Keith Jesperson.
It was posted by him? Okay.
He was the actual author of the post. Not sure how he did it from prison, but the page implied that it was from him. And was referring to a person from Albion, Pennsylvania, who had contacted him regarding how to become a serial killer. Morbid stuff, but I read on.
I would have read on.
100%.
Yeah.
I was like, if I had time,
yeah,
would I try to dig and find this?
Absolutely.
Jesperson then told a story how this person from Albion went to Columbus, Mississippi to visit a friend and committed his first murder. He stated that the man was arrested in a town in Texas, gave the date for the DUI, and spent a night in jail, and came back through and committed his second murder in Columbus. Through the story, he admits to killing all five people. Jesperson also gives full names of the victims, ages, and dates of the murders. I thought, a man in jail for life in Oregon, it would be really strange for him to have this information about murders in a small Mississippi town.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking it was very weird, I sent an email to the editor, Bryony Imes Jr., Commercial Dispatch, including a link to the website for them to look into, and heard nothing back. About a year later, I also sent information to the Columbus Police Department, also including the link to the website, and heard nothing back.
Mm-hmm.
I felt it might have been worth looking into, especially to see if they could verify a person was arrested in the town in Texas on the specific date for the DUI, since Jesperson mentioned it in his writing.
Mm-hmm. There's
so much dirty stuff in that town. I was a city worker, and one morning I came upon a house that had a crime scene tape all around it. A woman was murdered the night before, either in 1980 or 1981, shot in the back of the head after she was dead. Pill bottles all around the house, and one of the most prominent of lawyers' names, not the victims. A friend I knew ran them out of a local bar the previous night at 3 a.m. to close the place. By 8:30 the next morning, the cops were there at her home. 2 weeks after the murder, one of the people who ran out of the bar moved to Birmingham, Alabama, never to return. And 6 years later, the lawyer whose name was on all the pill bottles went out to get his morning newspaper, and someone literally blew his head off with a shotgun.
Oh.
Yeah. I was renting an apartment from the landlord whose backyard backed up against the lawyers and was told that 4 months prior to the lawyer's death, he told her he was going to be killed. They arrested and convicted a man when everyone in town knows he didn't do it, and he was given life without parole. 10 years later, he's released, no probation or anything. Corrupt little town for sure.
Yeah.
And Lee, 1969, commented in April of 2020, I'm a new member, and to save time, I'm just going to try to put everything in one comment. Hers was like the shortest comment
Of course it
of
was.
the whole thing. The police know who did it. He was a detective at the time. That's how he got in. DNA evidence was found last summer. Fact. But y'all will probably never hear about it because our chief and probably the mayor too don't want it out. He had nothing to do with the 2 ladies that were killed in Starkville, obviously because they had the guy who killed them, thank God. And I think she is referring to the mother and daughter.
Okay.
From before.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he does live in Starkville last time I checked, and to be honest, is probably a member here. I don't know if she meant on the internet or what.
Mm-hmm.
His time is coming. I promise y'all that. And the guy arrested in Texas was linked to a murder in Tupelo and one on the coast and is possibly connected to a missing lady from Columbus that has been missing over 30 years, I believe. I'll take a picture of the billboard with her on it when I get on the bypass in a couple of days, and I'll try to post it on here. Never posted.
Yeah. They never do.
Yeah. So
I mean, we never post things when we say we're going to post them either.
I try to be good about including the photos.
Sometimes. I feel like there's like random things like, oh, well, what if we remember?
If it has nothing to do with the case,
Yeah.
Then yeah, no, it's very slim chance I'm going to remember to do that. So lastly, we have Kenzie, me.
Oh, I was like, wow, someone had the same comment. Or
December 2023. So I think that whoever that person was at Robert's house is suspicious. And if the profilers think it's a woman, and as far as people knew at the time, Robert was a loner, and even if it turns out that he has a daughter, if they couldn't find his family at first, then who knows who this suspicious lady was.
Right. Ooh.
Right. His house was burned down, and he was the first of the 3 murders in 1998. Maybe the killer messed up and was fearful that something would tie them to the murder, so they burnt down the house.
Right. The light flickered back on.
The next 2 they made look like a robbery after the fact to possibly throw off investigators. If the person was a drifter, it would make sense that they wouldn't stay in the small town for more than a month.
Right.
And I think the first 2 killings were done separate people.
Okay.
But the last 3 were done by the same person.
And so you think also, so it's like, you think there's 3 different killers?
Yes.
Okay.
So, many still believe that this is the work of a serial killer despite arrests made in other cases. Police don't think the cases are related. And the internet, of course, thinks it's a conspiracy cover-up. Use your best judgment, folks. And that is the story of the ghosts of Mississippi.
Wow.
Yeah.
I kind of am going with your theory about how the first one was different from the second one, who's different from the last 3. But I also kind of like the military theory because it is the 3-year thing, which is just like, you know, you're at a different place every 3 years.
Well, that could be, but I think the guy that they found the DNA, I think that's...
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
And it didn't, you know, they kept talking about sending things to the crime lab. Don't know.
I know. It's like, okay, are you doing that?
They had all these suspects. Like, I don't know. And then for them to come in and say it was a woman.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And this is probably one of those cases, too, where we're just never going to know.
No. I don't see them putting in much more effort.
Unfortunately.
Like, the ones I found on the internet had far more, like, oh, yeah, this sounds plausible.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was thinking about it because there's like, okay, when you're in the middle of it, you're busy collecting everything. And you need to take a step away and come back and look at the big picture.
Yes.
Because I feel like a lot of these people on the internet and things like that, we have everything all up front.
Yes.
So we can look at it as a big picture and come up with these ideas.
That's why I swear, I'm really not kidding. Departments need to open up their cold cases and send them to just people.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, you do have all the information and there's not one thing. Because like sometimes if you're fixated on one thing, all of your other thoughts get clouded because you're just focused on one thing.
Correct.
And that could be a red herring. So something that's not even, you know, super important. But other people who don't have that one thing they're focused on can look at everything.
Yep. And, you know, then you can't use the excuse that we don't have the time.
Right. Because now you have so many people.
Yeah. So, hire them as consultants.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I can guarantee you, true crime fans would do it for free.
Right.
To have the ability to say, oh, I helped solve that true
Yeah,
crime, like that cold
100%.
case.
Just
I
for
don't
the
need to be
clout.
paid. I could just be able
for
to
the
tell
clout.
people that. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Just for the clout. But yeah, as soon as I saw that there was a woman there, and then I was like, wait a minute, I thought they said he was a loner.
Right.
I could easily see it being like, house is on fire, she's there, and she's like, oh my God, it's my dad. Because they never say anything else about her.
It's that one picture, the meme of the girl standing in front of the fire.
Yes.
I know it.
That
I'm
picture.
so sorry that shouldn't be said, but
Right. Well, and then.
but yeah, I mean, and like killers are also said to always go back
Mhm.
to like their crimes.
Yeah. And to me, it's interesting because I'm like, there's obviously some sort of ulterior motive because nothing was taken.
Right. Which is the weird part. Like
Yeah.
things were ransacked, but like if your big, important, like expensive things aren't taken, then what's your point?
And I feel like it would also kind of make sense that it was a woman because Louise was getting dressed
Mm-hmm.
and she wasn't sexually assaulted.
And I'm sorry that this is the stereotype, but it is. If a man is knocking at my door, I am way less likely to answer
Yeah.
it than if a woman is knocking at my door.
Yeah. I mean, even in the 90s, like it's
Yes.
not like the 60s.
Right. It's just how it is.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I would not think twice about opening it up to a woman.
Right.
For sure. Don't get any fucking ideas, ladies.
My coworker is always like, there needs to be more women serial killers. I think they can do it. I was like, no.
No, because then we can't say that like all men suck because now women are crazy too.
Or it's just women are better at getting away with it.
Probably.
Hence could potentially be this case.
I mean.
No, but yeah, the woman theory is interesting. And the one person who's the daughter who we never hear about again.
Right.
Like never hear about again. Like that's
Correct.
weird.
Correct. Yes. Exactly.
Huh.
I don't know.
Interesting case.
It's bizarre.
It is bizarre. And probably will be an unsolved case. Mostly unsolved case forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I thought got really excited. I was like, oh my God, something I thought was unsolved. Look, it's solved.
Ugh.
No.
It's so sad.
Only partially.
Only partially.
Only a little bit.
Well, nicely done.
Thank you. Which you be talking about today?
Just so everyone knows, Kenzie was really excited about this. She messaged me yesterday and she was like, hey, I have a really good opener for you, but I'm not going to tell you what it is and I'll just do it tomorrow, but you have to remind me.
Well, I didn't say you had to remind me until you were like, oh, so what is it? And I'm like, no. That was not the purpose of this.
You'll see tomorrow.
Right. The purpose, I was using you as a reminder.
So if that made any sense, I will be talking about witchy things in Mississippi.
Did I say it right? No, I think I wanted to say what you talking about. That's what I wanted to say. There we go. Not which. What did I say? I don't know what I said. What you talking about?
Okay, witches. All right. So the first is the Witch of Yazoo. In the western part of Mississippi.
Isn't that the name of the bird in Lion King?
Zazu.
Zazu.
This is Witch of Yazoo. So in the western part of Mississippi sits the town of Yazoo. It was founded in 1824, and it is often described as quaint and charming. But a little weird fact, as of 2021, their most important industry was a group of federal prisons. Yeah. So through Yazoo runs the 188-mile or 303-kilometer Yazoo River. Yazoo has a whole bunch of legends, but the most popular and well-known is the legend of the witch. So according to legend, there was once an evil woman who lived alone along the river, known to many as the Witch of Yazoo or the Witch of Yazoo City, because every time a woman lives alone, she's a witch. She lived right on the banks of the river among the grove of trees. The river in the town was an important thing, so men would come here to fish, get food, water, other necessities for their families. But soon, men were being lured to the most treacherous parts of the river by something. They would be attacked, then all of their goods would be stolen. The treacherous part of this river just so happened to be where this woman or this witch lived, so soon other rumors started popping up that this woman would lure fishermen into her home on dark, stormy nights. She would poison them with arsenic, killing them. She would then bury them on the wooded hill nearby. So immediately the townsfolk believed the witch was to blame, but they had no solid proof. That is until one day in 1884, a young boy named Joe Bob Duggett I'm sorry, a very Mississippi name.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm going to go down to the Duggett house.
Go hang out with Joe Bob.
And his brother, Bob Joe.
So he was rafting on the river, passing by the witch's house. As he was close, he heard a terrible, ungodly moan coming from inside. He tied his raft to a nearby tree, ran to the house, and peered into the window. He knew of the stories and the suspicions that were on the witch, so as he peered inside, he expected to see your typical witch things. A huge cauldron being stirred by the witch while she talks to her cat or her familiar. But what he saw was much more terrifying. The witch, wearing a black dress, was hovering over what appeared to be 2 dead bodies. She was gazing up at the heavens and whispering incantations out loud to what seemed to be an invisible companion, all while waving her arms around in huge circles. Frightened, Joe Bob raced back to his raft, took it back to town, and informed authorities of what he had witnessed.
Joe Bob seems sus.
The local sheriff went to the witch's home, obviously, to look for these missing men and to identify the bodies that the boy had seen. They smashed down the front door, but there were no dead bodies to be found.
No.
Bodies that have still not been found to this day.
They were never there.
Continuing their search, they then climbed up the stairs to the attic. There, they saw several dozen half-starved cats, all moving around in rather weird and unnatural ways. They also found 2 skeletons hanging from the attic's rafters. These bodies have also never been identified. The room smelled awful, with all the cats, and there were also fish bones that had been scattered on the floor.
Well, she has cats.
Yeah, right.
And she lives next to a river.
Right, like free food.
She thought the cats would fend for themselves.
Here's some fish.
Yeah.
Right before the sheriff, his deputy, and Joe Bob made their way back downstairs, they heard a noise. They looked out of the attic window and saw the witch running from the swamp to escape. Even though there were no bodies...
I would too. If that's my reputation, there's no way in hell anyone's going to believe me.
Well, yeah. I mean, there were no bodies and no crime had been committed that could be found, but she still fled and swiftly ran from the house to the swamp. "Stop in the name of the law," the deputy cried out.
Ah, yes. The thing that makes them all freeze.
Exactly. But the woman, described as, quote, half ghost and half scarecrow, but all witch, continued to run.
I can't with this story.
The sheriff, his deputies, and Joe Bob gave chase and eventually did catch up with the witch. There had been many recent rains in the area, so the ground had gotten quite soft. When the men caught up with the witch, she was caught in mud. The men tried to pull her out, but all of the movement turned the mud to quicksand, and slowly the witch began to sink.
Clearly, she did not prepare herself.
I thought about this too. I said, this is a situation where knowing what to do would have been helpful. This is your childhood fear coming to life.
Not mine.
Other people's childhood fears. As she slowly sank into the sand, she cursed the town, swearing that she would come back for revenge. She said, quote, "In 20 years, I will return and burn this town to the ground."
See, the only reason why I can believe that she went through the mud was because I was watching a Bob's Burgers episode the other day, and
So realistic, yes.
they were looking for this little chihuahua, and Luis and Tina got stuck in mud, and they were sinking.
Yeah. So those were her last words as she sank below the surface.
If they had been, instead of a quicksand, it was quick mud or something like that, a sediment that's more prevalent, then maybe I would have been a little bit more terrified. But I was like, there's no sand around here. I'm never going to run into this problem.
Well, you don't know. Using pitchforks and long cypress limbs, the authorities were able to remove the woman's body from the quicksand.
Yeah.
The town buried the witch in the Glenfield Cemetery. They didn't necessarily believe her curse, but they marked the day of death anyways, May 25th, 1884. A chain was then placed around the witch's gravestone as a way to keep her spirit trapped inside. In a joking manner, after placing the chains on, the sheriff said...
That's your first mistake.
Right. Quote, "If she can break through that and burn down Yazoo, she deserves to burn it down." Yep.
Pause here. Class?
What did we do wrong? This plot where she was buried soon became known as, very originally, the witch's grave.
Wow.
I know. Everything in the town was quiet and calm for the next 20 years. That is until exactly 20 years later, to the day of the witch's death, on May 25th, 1904, the city of Yazoo caught on fire. The fire spread quickly, destroying 200 homes and even more businesses. Witnesses said that flames acted odd as they jumped, twisted, and leapt in a way that they had never seen before. The flames leapt through the air and spread more as strong gusts of wind began to blow.
So, wind through the fire.
Well, it looked as if the wind was being driven by some supernaturally forceful winds. The previous day had been calm, but the winds today were screaming and howling as they blew the fire all over the town. But what is weird is if you look at weather reports on this day, May 25th, 1904, in this area, they don't show any record of high winds in the Yazoo area. In the end, hundreds in the community were displaced and 324 buildings were completely destroyed.
Fuck around and find out.
Yeah, exactly. Most people believe the fire had been caused by Miss Pauline Wise. She was to be married soon and had been prepping for her wedding. Apparently, she was entering her parlor to show her visitors some gifts, and that's when she noticed a small flame. Suddenly, a strong wind whipped through the parlor and just pushed the flame, spreading it to the adjoining houses. Many believe that the fire had been accidentally started by her, but many others started to believe that the flames were dancing by command of the witch and that it wasn't a freak accident after all. Finally,
Some fucking freak accident.
I know. Finally, the fire was extinguished, and immediately the townspeople went to the witch's grave. The chain that they had secured around the grave 20 years prior lay on the ground broken. The rumor that this might have been the witch's doing caused another stronger chain to be placed around the grave, because they believe that if you place it around, they can't leave. Like, it keeps them in the ground. Well, that chain broke. And the next chain broke. Again and again and again.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're trying to do there.
At one time, the headstone contained only 2 letters, T and W, people believe, which stood for the witch.
Okay.
Not only was the chain unable to remain on the grave, but shortly after, the witch's grave fell over and split in 2.
Okay.
But there seems to be another version of this story. So this one was only found in one article, so keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
This one goes that there was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
She was either having an affair with a man in town or she was involved in some sort of family drama. But at some point, and for reasons unknown, the man this woman was involved with murdered her, killing her in a fire. He then buried her and tried to forget about her in the incident altogether.
And then she said no.
But strangely, close to the anniversary of the woman's death, a fire ripped through the town, completely burning down half of it. It was around this time that someone soon realized the woman's grave had been dug up. Confusion and accusation started to fly, with people shouting that it was her, she came back and she did it. Others weren't so sure. They didn't want to jump to any crazy conclusions.
Yeah.
But as they started to look more at everything and think more about it, they started to think, okay, well, maybe it was this woman. So they found a chain, took it to the woman's grave as a way to keep her spirit inside the grave. They
Have
wrapped
they
it around.
never seen A Christmas Carol? Homie is dragging in chains.
Dragging the chains.
Like, that's not stopping nobody.
Right. So this is where the 2 stories converge, with the chain breaking over and over and over again.
Got it.
So today, the grave is sort of a tourist site known for the stories surrounding this woman's death and her curse. Today, locals refer to her as the Chain Lady. This area and cemetery where she is laid to rest is also well known as being a place of paranormal activity.
You put a witch there.
What did you expect? The cemetery itself dates back to at least 1856 and houses many interesting graves. One gravesite here includes a mass grave that holds the bodies of countless Confederate soldiers. Mississippi native and notable author Willie Morris is also buried here. He's actually the one who popularized the story of the Witch of Yazoo in his 1971 book, Good Old Boy. Coins. I didn't read his book, but that's how she was popularized. So coins, flowers, and buttons are often left on Morris and the witch's grave to show respect to the 2. So that's Witch of Yazoo.
I think that this woman was probably beautiful.
Probably.
Was living peacefully on this river.
With her cat.
With her cats.
Cats.
Cats. And men who were using the river would come by and see her. And she probably turned down their advances, knowing that maybe they were married or maybe they're just icky. And like most men who get rejected, they did not take it too kindly. So now she's a witch.
I mean,
and so
witch trials in Salem.
Right. So the Bobby Joe guy.
Joe Bob.
Joe Bob. Joey Bobby, whatever. I think he had the same kind of thing. Went there. Oh my gosh. Beautiful lady. And she's like, get the fuck out of here, kid. And he gets all pissy.
Fine. Well, I'm going to tell people that there are bodies in your house.
Right. I thought it was pretty bold of him to come back.
Yeah.
Like if I told that lie.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go check it out.
That's what I was confused about too.
I would not say, well, I'm going to come with you. Like,
well, they wanted him to, I guess, show them.
Well, and of course he's going to spin it as like, oh my God, it was here. She's a witch. She magically made it go away.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Okay. Story number 2. Quote, witch dance. The very name conjures visions of eerie midnights, swirling black capes, and brooms stacked against a nearby tree. The old folks say the witches once gathered here to dance, and that wherever their feet touched the ground, the grass withered and died, never to grow again. Impossible? Maybe so, but look around. Look for a hidden spot where no grass grows.
Virginia in the winter.
Well, it's in spots, like stepping stone spots.
Had a dog pee on it.
In a perfect circle.
Old dog.
Pete, stop. Pete, stop.
If it was a boy dog, you could probably get him to do that.
Roy could probably do that.
Oh my God.
The amount he pees. So this is the sign you'll see. Put it by the U.S. Department of the Interior National Park Service before you enter the grounds known as the Witch Dance.
Oh, damn. This is like federally certified.
Yeah. The Witch Dance is located on the Natchez Trail, which is a 444-mile parkway in Mississippi. So I actually talked about this trail in our last Mississippi episode about a robber. I included it about a robber named Andrew Glass who would wait along the trail and rob those traveling along it. Well, this was a very common occurrence along this trail as it was the main route of transportation in the 17 to 1800s. Murder was also pretty common. The trail had so much evil occur that it actually garnered the nickname of Devil's Backbone.
Oh.
Which is a brewery around here.
Is that
I don't know.
Like the original?
I don't know.
Okay.
Located at milepost 233.2, this area, first inhabited by Native Americans, soon became a meeting spot for witches. So the original inhabitants here were of the Hopewell culture, and they were prevalent in the area between 200 BC and 500 AD.
Wow.
I know. Later, I know. So later, many of their descendants would join the Chickasaw or Choctaw tribes. Lore is told by Native Americans that the Hopewell Indians had been in Mexico, but had escaped to this area during oppressive times. They had to carry the bones of their ancestors with them. Many of these bones then became part of the great mounds built in the area.
Maybe she was one of them, and that's why the bones were there.
Maybe. The Paleo Indian group were the ones who settled in this particular area. They were responsible for constructing the Bynum mounds, so the mounds with bones. Legends say that their leader would guide them on their journey. He traveled with the white dog as his companion, and he carried a sacred bag and medicine stick. Each night, he would plant the medicine stick in the ground, and that is where the tribe would sleep that night. During their stay in whatever area they were in, the stick's position would change. Whichever way it pointed meant that the group was to continue their journey in that direction.
Oh, interesting.
The white dog would lead the tribe to berries and food as they continued on their journey. Eventually, one night, the stick was planted and it pointed straight up, indicating that this was their new home. So as they were settling in, the tribe buried the bones of their ancestors in mounds in this area. Two brothers, Choctaw and Chickasaw, eventually discovered that this land could not support all of the tribe, so Chickasaw took half of the people and headed north with them. They became the Chickasaw tribe. Choctaw and the others who remained in this area became known as the Choctaw tribe. I know.
Wait. Okay. I'm not even going to make you do it again. Just keep going.
Please don't. Two brothers split up. Those are the two tribes.
Okay.
It is believed that this spot was specifically chosen by the witches because two different groups of Native Americans are said to have buried their ancestors here, as well as all of the legend and superstition that surrounds the land. And during the witches' meetings, they would celebrate and try to improve their abilities. They would feast and dance throughout the night, and many rituals and ceremonies were performed, many of them involving dancing. But it is said that during these dances, wherever the witches' feet touched, the ground would die, never to regrow again. It is also said that touching these barren spots is bad luck. Indians, travelers, and traders would all avoid these spots at all costs.
Interesting.
But some didn't heed the warning. Micajah Big Harp was a local criminal in the area. He and his brother, Willie Little Harp, were known for torturing, mutilating, and robbing those traveling along the trail. They were often referred to as the country's first serial killers, with it being estimated that they killed more than 40 men, women, and children, dismembering some of their victims' bodies. One story says that Big Harp murdered Major John Love.
He doesn't have a big heart.
Well, Big Harp.
Oh, harp.
But he did murder Major John Love for snoring too loudly.
I've been there. I get where it gets you to the homicidal point.
I know. Last night I was just trying to sleep and Joe kept like making noises and I kept like
elbowing
jabbing him. So Big Harp had been warned to stay away and avoid the barren spots by an Indian guide who was traveling the trail with him. Big Harp scoffed at this and ignored the warnings. He took it one step further and went up to the barren spots. He started to jump from spot to spot, daring the witches to come out and fight him. So I say, test. So far, what has Big Harp done wrong? Nothing happened at that moment, so Big Harp scoffed even more and they continued on their way. He finally made his way back to his home in Kentucky. But in August of 1977, a group had tracked him down. They wanted revenge. Big Harp.
1977? 19.
Nope. 1799. Mixed up those numbers completely. I'm so confident too.
I mean, like, I'm crazy. I'm like, that was recent, dude.
All right, let's try this again.
I was thinking maybe she meant 1877. You just said all the wrong numbers.
I really did. I got the one right. Okay. But in August of 1799, a group had dragged him down. They wanted revenge. Big Harp and his brother Little Harp had murdered one of the men's wives so that when the men caught Big Harp, he cut off his head and nailed it to a tree.
Yeah.
Some believe that a witch later took his head and used it for a special potion, grounding it into a powder and using that powder in a potion to heal a sick relative. In 1804, Little Harp was captured, convicted, and hanged. What I thought was interesting was the article said he was legally hanged. And I'm like, okay.
I feel like a lot of stuff back then happened whether or not law enforcement said that true or not.
Right.
So,
pretty much. Area locals even warned visitors to avoid stopping at witch dance at night for fear of encountering supernatural forces. Many of those who have traveled down this trail near the witch dance claim to hear cackling and laughing coming from the woods. The laughing is especially prevalent after someone had just told the story of the Hart brothers.
well, sure.
People have also reported hearing chanting and the beating of drums during a full moon. But those aren't the only hauntings in these woods. According to legend as well, weeping can be heard from the woods. The sounds of the crying are believed to come from highwayman Samuel Wolfman Mason. So a highwayman is another one of those people who robs these unsuspecting travelers. It is said that a reward was being offered for his capture, $2,000 dead or alive. So his own men turned against him and murdered him.
I mean,
$2,000! In October of 1803, the outlaws who killed him returned for their reward, with Mason's head rolled in a ball of clay.
ew.
The mournful weeping as his still heard along the trail to this day. Joseph Thompson Hare was another awful outlaw who gained notoriety for doing the same things to travelers along the trail. And he was an awful guy all around. So legend says that Hare suspected his girlfriend of cheating on him. Instead of just breaking up with her like a normal sane person, he decided to get revenge instead.
Well, of course.
His revenge was burying her alive in an unmarked grave somewhere along the trail. Her spirit is believed to haunt the area. Apparently, too, her ghost will appear and offer gold to anyone who will dig up her body and give her a proper burial.
Oh.
So far, no one has taken her up on this offer, so her spirit is still wandering the trail.
Yo, if I could, oh my God, would I come back and haunt his ass?
Oh my God, yes. Yes. So prior to Hare's death in 1818, he claimed that he saw many apparitions on the trail, frequently mentioning seeing a phantom white horse. So he wrote a journal, and this is what it said in the journal. Quote, I saw standing right across the road a beautiful white horse, as white as snow. His ears stood straight forward, and his figure was very beautiful. When I approached him and got within 6 feet of him, he disappeared in an instant. Years after he saw this horse, he thought it had been sent to him by God to make him repent, but he never did, and he continued being an awful human. So, like...
It's like, I hear you, but
no thanks.
no thanks.
People who have visited the trail near this area have seen orbs as well. Okay, so just a side note. So, of course, I'm reading comments about witch dance and all that stuff because duh. So 2 people got into an argument on one of the things. One escalated the situation to like a really intense level. Like it didn't need to go there, but they took it there anyway. The other person replied back saying this would be their last time replying and ended their comment by saying, quote, but I'm going to tell you again, enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday. Be blessed or get fucked.
Beautiful.
I was like, that is so amazing.
Poetic.
So all I kept thinking was, be blessed or get fucked.
Yeah, right?
That was so funny. So that is the witch dance.
Wow.
Another place I would not go.
Intense.
But that trail, it looks like it would be such a fun hiking trail. Because it's like covered with trees and it's just
you
like,
just gotta avoid the spots.
looks so serene. Well, also that's where like the people would kidnap you. Well, like torture you, murder you, all that stuff.
Well, they don't do that anymore.
Hopefully. All right, the last witchy place I'm going to talk about is the Witch's Acre. So I had to include all the witchy things in this one because it all just fits. And I was going to save this one for later because I already had 2 things, but then I read about it because I was going to like, oh, circle back to Mississippi, we can cover it.
Yeah.
There's only 1 article about it, and I was like, we're just going to throw it in here.
Perfect.
So this acre is located in the county of Chickasaw, Mississippi, on what is known as the Houston Road. There's a lonely spot there called the Witch's Rendezvous. This area is known for the wild number of traditions and superstitions that take place here and are connected to the area. So similar to the witch dance, this area has a circle that is completely barren of grass and bush. It is said that no leaf or twig has ever fallen within this circle. The soil inside of the circle is a red color, while the soil outside is kind of dark. The legend goes that the Chickasaw Indians were surprise ambushed by the Creek Indians and massacred. The Great Spirit, to express his wrath, turned the soil the color of blood and cursed it forever, causing troubled spirits to haunt it and curse and scare all who passed through the area. This legend continued on, and many are still afraid to, many who live in this area are still afraid to go anywhere near it.
Yeah.
It is said that at midnight, witches have been coming to the area for half a century to dance and practice their magic. Mediums who had visited the area have said that they had spoken to the witches who used to gather here, who have confirmed the story of spirits being trapped. Mediums have said that they were told that over 100 years ago, 180 Chickasaw Indians were killed by the Creek Indians. They were scalped and their bodies were left on the ground to be eaten by wolves. The Great Spirit was indeed mad and decreed the neighborhood should forever be under the foul influence of evil spirit.
Uh-oh.
Then 35 years ago, some rumors started to rumble about how there had to be buried treasure in this area.
Oh, and lordy.
But so this rumor came from an article written by Colonel Thomas S. Garthright. He said that there was a tradition that had been common in the area where Indian tribes would bury valuable treasure. So after his account, a large number of people went to the witches' rendezvous and began to dig looking for the treasure. Well, nothing was ever found. So this place is said to be haunted, and all of the hauntings are usually witnessed between midnight and daybreak. Ghostly forms are seen, some in white dresses with a glow to them, some of them appear to be brides, old hags who perform unearthly dances, Indian warriors riding on their skeleton horses, huge humans like giants, all the way down to gaunt figures with eyes that glow like balls of fire who speak in goblin-like voices.
This is all in this patch of land.
Like all in this area, yeah. Sounds are also heard here. As midnight arrives, the infamous witch laugh sounds.
Ugh.
It's a wild, tremulous, discordant sound.
Wow, those are some words.
Thank you. It was an article. It is usually followed by horrible screams which echo through the entire area. Spectral lights flash and phantom lights float through the air after the laugh. Other noises are heard after, like a woman wailing or witches speaking quietly working on an incantation. But other times, the circle is, quote, as quiet as a home of the dead. The pale lights are still visible. Those who have braved the area from midnight to dawn have said, quote, that under no inducement would they again subject themselves to the prolonged torture of such preternatural spectacles.
Jesus.
So they don't want to go back. At dawn, a rooster crows and all of the spectral images vanish.
That's nuts.
Isn't that weird? Many travelers will avoid this area no matter the time of day, and no one lives within 3 miles of the spot either. A few people do have tales of visiting, so let me end this tale with their stories. So I have 3. So J.F. Nelson, a well-known and respected young man, was returning home from Okolone one night. Okolone is a place.
I figured.
Yeah. Everything was quiet in the forest as he was riding along until he reached the witches' rendezvous. Out of the darkness, a female form floated out onto the road. She was tall, slender, and dressed in white. Her hair was long and fell over her shoulders. The moment she reached the middle of the road, she threw her arms in the air and started to dance. Everybody, hands go up.
Do a freaking interpretive dance.
So Nelson was frozen and could not move. He said he felt so spellbound that moving was impossible. Nelson's horse also stopped, terrified. After a few moments, the figure melted away, and Nelson and his horse, both terrified, continued on. Just the next night, Colonel Park was riding to Okolone. When he arrived at the witches' rendezvous, he saw numerous tents, wagons, horses, and figures moving all around. He didn't think much of it and kept on his way. The next day, as he was riding by again, he still saw everything. He looked for a moment longer when suddenly the whole vision vanished completely, spurring he and his horse to flee as quickly as possible.
Well, wait, was he traveling during the time?
It says just the next day, so I assume he still saw something during the day, which doesn't make sense based on what they say between midnight and dusk, but who knows? Maybe it was like the next day, but like the next night, you know, like the next day night. Yeah. All right, then we have the story of the 4 young men. 2 of these men were William Akers and Samuel Hudson. So these 4 men actually wanted to see and prove all of the stories that are said about this place. They positioned themselves in the shadows of an oak tree while on their horses' backs. But I don't know how long they stayed there because it says the shadows of an oak tree and then more stuff happens at midnight. So who knows?
Well, if the moon's bright enough.
Yeah. So at exactly midnight, a shrill laugh sounded. The horses were terrified and they were shaking and quivering. The men, too, were terrified, but they were determined to stick it out. So they got off their horses, tied them up, and walked towards the circle.
Get on the horse.
After only about 5 minutes, another laugh sounded out, followed by some eerie voice-like sounds. Lights then flew across the sky, soon forming into 5 or 6 old hags, all dancing around in a circle, scary laughing. Because I wrote like laughing, singing, but it's like cackling, singing and gibbering away, though no words were recognizable to the men. All of the hags were lean and scraggly, with wrinkled skin, peaked noses, and mouths that moved with horrible and diabolic grins. Their eyes glared like those of a giant serpent. For 20 minutes, the hags danced and the young men watched. One more cackle sounded and they disappeared. The trees surrounding the circle began to shake, as if a strong breeze were moving them, though there was no breeze that night. At about 2 a.m, a pale light started to extend over the area, and from the shadows came a man riding a horse. He was dressed in full war wear with paint, with his long black hair flowing over his broad shoulders. His face was painted red, yellow, and black, and around his waist was a huge strip of scalps.
Ew!
Hundreds of them.
Ew!
He was wearing what is believed to have been a Chickasaw warrior outfit. The man was sitting atop a huge horse. For a time, the horse walked forward and backward, but never making a single sound, like no hoof noises. Suddenly, breaking the silence was a loud war whoop, quotes, then the sound of horses galloping away as the figure and his horse disappeared.
So far, from what it sounds like, while creepy, none of these spirits have actually messed with anybody.
Okay.
Okay.
No, it doesn't seem like they do.
Yeah.
So 2 of the men, Henderson and Aker, wanted to investigate the circle where they had seen all of these figures. So right as they were about to step over the circle, a beautiful female figure appeared in front of them. It started to dance, causing the men to retreat back to their horses and the other 2 in their group. When the 2 men tried to explain what happened to the other 2 in the group, the other 2 said they could see everything that was happening. They could see the men walking up, but they never saw a female figure.
Woo!
The 2 men thought their minds must be playing tricks on them.
Have you ever seen, like, on TV shows where the person is hallucinating? And so you see, like, what they see.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets, like, to the end when, you know, they're hallucinating and then you don't see the person anymore.
Yes.
Shit's fucking creepy.
I know, it is. So they thought their minds were playing tricks on them. So again, they went back to try to cross the threshold into the circle. This time, at the same spot as before, 2 female figures floated down and began dancing.
They said, bitch, listen.
Right.
Back the fuck up.
So they retreated again. Over the course of the night, they witnessed witches dancing in a circle while laughing, then another Indian warrior weeping and wailing, and 100 Indian horsemen galloping through on their horses. After seeing this and fearing that the very spirit of evil had been turned loose, the men got on their horses and fled as quickly as their horses could take them. A local paper wrote about the men's experience and said, quote, "This is no idle tale, no vague phantasm of the ignorant mind. It is told by men who stand as high in public esteem as the best citizens of Chickasaw County." So there you have it, the witchy and haunted things that exist in Mississippi.
That's nutso.
I know. And there were so many witchy things, which I thought was really interesting.
The, like, section that is supposedly haunted or whatever, if, like, they couldn't go past it, like, there was a little invisible barrier.
Yeah.
I would, like, if there was a parking lot, wouldn't mind sitting and just watching.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I was, like, reading about this, like, most recent one, and I was like, that doesn't sound awful.
Right.
Like, it sounds like you just kind of see things. Things don't really interact with you. Like, they might dance around you. They might kind of do
But
that.
They don't mess with you or
They don't
anything.
mess with you.
Yeah.
And I was like, that'd be kind of fun to, like, do what they did, sit in the shade and just kind of watch the show from midnight to 6.
I don't know about that long. Although my adrenaline would keep me up for quite some time.
Yeah, and even when we would go back, you'd just be sitting in bed like, oh my God.
I'm like, they're still here.
But yeah, so Mississippi.
And witchy.
Witchy and scary.
Witchy and scary.
So thanks for listening. Rate and review us. Let us know when you've done that.
We have friends that have received stickers for it, so we're not just talking out our butt. You really get them. In fact, you get 3.
Cool. Send us any scary stories and encounters you have to a scarystatepodcast@gmail.com.
Correctamundo. And follow us on all the things.
At A Scary State Podcast, A Scary State Pod.
Some variation of that.
We're somewhere there.
Yeah.
So I guess that's all we have for you, so stay scary.
Stay safe.